Imagine waking up in medieval England. The streets are silent. Church bells are ringing again and again, not for celebration, but for death. A strange disease has arrived. People fall sick in the morning, and by nightfall, they are gone. Within 2 years, nearly half the population of England will die. Entire villages will disappear, families will vanish, and no one knows why. This was the Bubonic Plague, the deadliest disaster of the Middle. Before the plague arrived, England in the early 1300s was a land of farms, small towns and growing cities. Most people lived simple lives. Farmers worked the land for local lords. Merchants sold goods in crowded marketplaces. Church bells rang daily across villages. But life was not easy. There had already been hardship. Bad harvests, cold weather, and famine had weakened the population during the early 14th century. Still, no one could imagine the disaster that was about to arrive. The plague did not begin in England. Most historians believe it started somewhere in Central Asia. From there it travelled west along trade routes. Merchants, sailors and caravans unknowingly carried the deadly bacteria with them. By 1347, ships arriving in European ports brought more than spices and silk. Hidden among the cargo were rats carrying infected fleas. Those fleas carried the bacteria responsible for the plague. Soon, ports across Europe began reporting terrifying outbreaks. And in 1348, the disease finally reached England. The first known cases appeared in the port town of Melcombe Regis in Dorset. From there, it spread with horrifying speed. The disease struck quickly. Victims often felt healthy in the morning and were dead within days. It usually began with fever, chills, and extreme weakness. Soon, painful swellings appeared on the body. These swollen lumps, called buboes, formed in the neck, armpits, or groin. They were dark, infected, and incredibly painful. Some victims also developed black spots on their skin caused by internal bleeding. This is why the plague became known as the Black Death. For many people, death came within 3 to 5 days. Doctors were helpless. No one understood what caused the disease. Some believed it was punishment from God. Others blamed poisoned air, strange planetary alignments, or curses. But the truth remained unknown. As the plague spread, fear consumed the country. Villages were abandoned. Families locked themselves inside their homes. Many people fled the cities, hoping to escape the disease. But the plague moved faster than they could run. Markets closed, churches filled with desperate prayers, and graveyards quickly ran out of space. In some towns, carts travelled the streets collecting the dead. Entire households vanished within days. Neighbours were too afraid to help one another. For the first time in generations, society began to collapse. When the plague reached London in 1349, the city faced a nightmare. At the time, London was already crowded and unsanitary. Narrow streets were filled with waste, animals, and dense housing, perfect conditions for disease to spread. Within months, thousands of people were dying. Mass graves had to be dug outside the city. Bodies were buried quickly, sometimes dozens at a time. Priests struggled to perform last rites for the dying. Doctors tried strange treatments. Some burned herbs in homes. Others used bloodletting. None of it worked. The plague continued its deadly march. Daily life became a constant battle with fear. People avoided contact with others. Many believed that simply breathing the air near a sick person could spread the disease. Some wealthy families fled to the countryside, but even remote villages were not safe. In many places, farms were abandoned because there were no workers left to harvest crops. Animals wandered unattended, fields went unplowed, entire communities disappeared. The world people once knew was falling apart. Between 1348 and 1350, the plague killed an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of England's population. That meant millions of people were gone within just 2 years. Some towns lost over half their residents. Entire villages vanished from the map forever. The loss was so overwhelming that many people believed the apocalypse had begun. The church struggled to explain the disaster. Faith was shaken, and grief touched nearly every family in the country. The English government attempted to control these changes. In 1351, new laws were introduced to limit wages and force workers to accept their old pay. This law became known as the Statute of Labourers, but enforcing it proved difficult. Workers were in short supply. Many simply moved to places where they could earn more money. The balance of power between nobles and common people was slowly changing. The plague did not disappear overnight. Smaller outbreaks returned many times over the following centuries, but the worst wave had passed by 1350. England was forever changed. Cities rebuilt, villages slowly recovered, but the memory of the plague remained. The population would take more than a century to fully recover, yet the transformation of society had already begun. Higher wages, greater mobility, and the gradual decline of feudalism. All of these changes were shaped by the devastating events of the Black Death. The Bubonic Plague was more than a disease. It was a turning point in history. It brought unimaginable suffering, but it also reshaped economies, social structures, and the future of England itself. From the crowded streets of medieval London to the quiet villages of the countryside, the plague left a scar that history would never forget. Today, centuries later, we still study this moment, not only to remember the tragedy, but to understand how societies survive even the darkest chapters of their past. Because sometimes, even the most devastating events can transform the course of history.